just 3 minutes and 51 seconds, 5 Department of Energy documents changed everything. Miliband didn't expect cost analysis. He expected routine climate policy questions. Cameras caught his panic. The Commons watched him crumble. What did I reveal about Labour's hidden net zero costs that left Britain's Energy Secretary speechless? At exactly 2:43 p.m. on the 16th of July 2025, the House of Commons was about to witness the most explosive energy confrontation since the winter fuel allowance debate. I walked to the dispatch box like an energy economist armed with evidence that would destroy a secretary's credibility on net zero costs forever. At the front bench, Energy Secretary Ed Miliband sat with his usual environmental confidence beside Chancellor Rachel Reeves, his green folder suddenly feeling inadequate for the economic storm heading his way. I adjusted my navy blazer and placed a leather portfolio on the dispatch box containing 167 pages of Department of Energy correspondence and cost analyses that would expose Labour's net zero policy as systematic economic deception. Mr. Speaker, I began, I want to ask the Energy Secretary about his department's net zero cost projections and some very troubling financial analyses that have concealed the true economic impact of climate policies on British families and businesses. Miliband's team had prepared for questions about renewable targets, not forensic analysis of economic data. Mr. Speaker, Miliband replied steadily, this government is committed to achieving net zero by 2030 through a just transition that protects working families while delivering clean energy independence and long-term economic benefits for Britain. Mr. Speaker, the Energy Secretary talks about protecting working families. I interrupted sharply, but I have here Department of Energy internal cost projections showing that his net zero policies will increase average household energy bills by £2,847 per year by 2028, while simultaneously imposing £67.3 billion in additional taxes and levies on British businesses. I opened my portfolio and removed a document bearing Department of Energy classification stamps. This classified DESN's Economic Impact Assessment, dated the 18th of June, 2025, explicitly details what officials call unavoidable household cost escalation, resulting from renewable energy infrastructure requirements and carbon pricing mechanisms. The revelation detonated like an economic bombshell in the chamber. £2,847 per H household plus £67.3 billion in business costs violated every principle of affordable climate transition and working family protection. Conservative MPs erupted in outrage, while Labour MPs sat in environmental shock. Mr. Speaker, Miliband replied, his voice now betraying clear stress. The Department of Energy conducts comprehensive economic modeling according to Treasury guidelines and independent analysis to ensure climate policies deliver value for money and household energy security. The deflection to Treasury guidelines was desperate, but I had spent weeks preparing for exactly this response. I had additional evidence that would make Miliband's claims not just false, but potentially criminal under parliamentary transparency laws. Mr. Speaker, Treasury guidelines, I continued with devastating precision, do not permit concealing energy cost projections by categorizing net zero expenses as investment opportunities or hiding carbon pricing impacts through what internal emails describe as creative accounting methodologies designed to minimize public opposition. The chamber erupted as MPs processed the full implications. This wasn't about modeling differences. This was about systematic deception, where climate policy costs were manipulated to enhance political acceptability while devastating working families. But I wasn't finished with my economic evidence. I had additional correspondence that would expand the scandal beyond cost concealment to include renewable energy contracts that struck at the heart of Britain's fiscal integrity. Mr. Speaker, I said, removing another document from my portfolio, I want to ask the Energy Secretary about his department's renewable energy procurement and some very concerning financial arrangements that have inflated clean energy costs while benefiting companies connected to labor advisors. The shift to procurement corruption sent another shockwave through the chamber. Miliband's face immediately flushed as he realized contract awarding was about to be discussed in terms that could trigger criminal investigations. "Mr. Speaker," Miliband replied, his voice already showing panic, "the Department of Energy awards renewable energy contracts through competitive processes designed to deliver the lowest possible costs for consumers while achieving our climate objectives." "Mr. Speaker," I replied with surgical precision, "DESNUN's procurement records show that offshore wind contracts worth £23.7 billion have been awarded to companies that submitted bids 34% higher than competing proposals, with contract awards justified through what procurement documents describe as strategic partnership considerations rather than value for money." The disclosure created another constitutional earthquake. Nearly £24 billion in inflated renewable contracts violated every principle of public procurement and fiscal responsibility in climate policy delivery. "Mr. Speaker," according to National Audit Office analysis obtained this morning, these contract premium costs will be passed directly to household energy bills through renewable energy levies, adding an additional £847 per household per year to the costs I mentioned earlier. At 2:47 p.m., exactly 4 minutes into questioning, both Miliband and Reeves experienced simultaneous political panic. Miliband's hands trembled as he reached for his water glass, while Reeves frantically shuffled through briefing papers, searching for explanations that could justify systematic climate cost concealment. "Mr. Speaker, these allegations completely misrepresent the government's commitment to affordable clean energy," Miliband whispered. "Britain's net zero transition is being delivered through the most cost-effective pathway available." "Mr. Speaker," I replied, "these cost-effective pathways include what department emails describe as managed public information releases to prevent climate policy resistance while implementing what officials acknowledge are economically devastating household cost increases." Meanwhile, the scandal was expanding as my evidence revealed coordination between Energy and Treasury departments. "Mr. Speaker, will the Energy Secretary confirm that his department coordinated with the Treasury to delay publication of net zero cost assessments until after the 2024 election to avoid what internal documents call electoral complications?" "Mr. Speaker, the Department of Energy publishes economic assessments according to established procedures," Miliband replied weakly. "Mr. Speaker, I have here WhatsApp communications between the Energy Secretary's private office and renewable energy company executives discussing specific contract awards and coordination of cost projection releases to minimize public scrutiny during the election period." The revelation of direct communications with energy companies about inflating contracts represented the ultimate breach of democratic governance and public procurement integrity. "Furthermore," I continued, delivering the final blow, "these messages include departmental confirmation that household cost projections would be adjusted to maintain electoral viability, despite knowing this would fundamentally mislead voters about the economic impact of climate policies." The chamber descended into chaos as MPs processed the full scale of what had been revealed. The Labour government hadn't just concealed net zero costs, they had systematically inflated renewable energy contracts while lying to voters about the economic impact of climate policies. Conservative MPs were on their feet demanding immediate government resignation. Labour MPs sat in stunned silence as the magnitude of climate policy fraud became clear. The Speaker's calls for order were drowned out by economic outrage that reverberated through Westminster's ancient halls. At 2:49 p.m., after exactly 6 minutes of questioning, both Miliband and Reeves experienced complete political collapse. Miliband buried his face in his hands, his environmental reputation disintegrating in real time. Reeves stared blankly at her notes, knowing that energy policy scandal of this magnitude typically destroyed entire governments. "Mr. Speaker," I concluded with the authority of someone presenting evidence to an economic tribunal, "based on this evidence, the Energy Secretary has systematically deceived voters about net zero costs, inflated renewable energy contracts for private gain, and betrayed every principle of transparent climate policy delivery. Speaker Hoyle, recognizing that normal parliamentary procedures were inadequate for allegations of this gravity, involving electoral fraud and economic deception, called for an immediate suspension. The House will suspend for 30 minutes while I consider the implications of the evidence presented for democratic governance and energy policy. Within minutes, social media exploded with footage of the ministerial breakdown. Netzergate trended worldwide within 15 minutes, generating climate policy controversy. Energy companies suspended executives pending investigation into contract manipulation. The Committee on Climate Change announced an emergency review of net zero cost projections. The Treasury Inspector launched a formal investigation into Energy Department procurement procedures. Citizens groups across Britain began organizing energy bill protests. The political earthquake continued for weeks as energy analysts investigated systematic cost concealment. My evidence had exposed coordination between ministers and corporations that corrupted democratic governance and environmental responsibility. Sometimes the strongest weapon against climate policy fraud isn't environmental ideology, Faye. It is economic evidence perfectly timed when cost concealment has nowhere to hide. What happens when ministerial lies meet parliamentary scrutiny? Ed Miliband learned these lessons when forensic analysis revealed that some net zero costs are too well documented to deny. This dramatized account explores themes of energy policy, climate governance, and democratic oversight of environmental transition costs. All dialogue and specific incidents are fictionalized for analytical purposes while addressing real concerns about transparency and economic impact in net zero policy delivery.